Okay, party people in the house, you're about to witness something you've never witnessed before. Live right now, here on YouTube, you have Auntie Miracle Baby. Welcome to the show.
Never given a fuck about my daughters. Just a moment, Mother. Never. You understand what I'm saying? I don't understand. There's a whole crew here now, but y'all was never there for them. How many birthdays did you miss? Mikey, his ex-girlfriend, did more for him than any of y'all. Mom, you have to stop. This is a hearing. Y'all was never there for them. You want to put on a show for the news, though?
Your Honor, he had no knowledge of anything.
And Linda Dorsey, you gonna get on the news and say what's absurd? They were raping my kids. Period.
You can't just be quiet until it's your turn.
It's like a damn fool y'all putting on that show.
Step out here for me. Step out here.
You're raping my fucking kids. You pathetic ass bitch, and you're fucking drunk.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. That young lady, that charmer that you just saw, was Mitchelle Blair, who we're going to discuss this evening. Yes, this is the freezer psycho baby mama. And I'm just going to go ahead and warn you that if you are easily triggered, you may want to go ahead and drop off now because this is very triggering. So this story involves rape among siblings, verbal and physical abuse, and worse, murder by a mother. So again, if this bothers you, please go ahead and extricate yourself because it is going to be very triggering. So Mitchelle Blair, let me bring a picture of homegirl up so you can see her. Well, I give my exposition. Mitchelle Blair here. Mitchelle Blair presented to the world that she was a dedicated and loving mother, but in reality, she abused all of her children, verbally and physically. So she had 4 kids with 2 different men. She had 2 daughters, Stoney and Gabrielle, who were fathered by this gentleman here, Alexander Dorsey. Pull him up. Actually, who cares about Alexander Dorsey? Oh, okay. Yes. He's a picture of the 2 deadbeat dads right here. Let me pull that up so y'all can see him. Oh, and this was in bum capital of the world, Detroit. And this crime occurred back in she got caught in 2015. Okay, I'll just pull it up from right here so y'all can see what they look like. So these are the fathers, Alexander Dorsey. These are the fathers right here. This is Alexander Dorsey. This was the father of the little boy. This was the father of the little boy who was murdered, and this is the father of the little girl who was murdered. So, as you can see, there was a lot of anger and rage in that clip that I showed you earlier, right? So, Her daughters, Stoney and Gabrielle, were fathered by Alexander Dorsey. That's the light skinned one. And then Stephen and Matthew were followed by Steve Berry. You know what? I got it wrong. The light skinned one is Steve Berry, and then the darker one is Dorsey. But anyway, so fathered these four kids by these two men. According to the relatives, Blair, she faced constant difficulties with paying her bills, feeding the children, and she needed financial help. And she was always asking for financial help. And of course, Blair was one of those people who could not keep and secure a job, right? So she had those children living in the most god awful squalor during this time period. Let's see. Images. So they was living in this god awful squalor. Um, so what happened in 2015? Michelle Blair was living in Eastside Detroit with the four children, and what happened was she was evicted from her house for not paying rent. So relatives, like I said, she was unable to keep a job and would call them for money. Um, but then all of a sudden, the calls stopped. So she wasn't asking them for money; she was keeping everybody at arm's length. Um, they told her to get a job and go back to school, so she decided, I'm not going to do that. So what happened was she was served an eviction notice. However, she wasn't there. So when the crew came to the house and they were removing her items from her house, they discovered a freezer that was sitting in the living room with two bodies of a teenage girl wrapped in a plastic bag, and then right underneath was the body of a 8-year-old boy underneath. So Michelle Blair was just down the street babysitting other people's children with her two living children. But Stony, that was the 13-year-old, was missing, and so was Stephen, that's the 9-year-old that was missing. Those were the two that she murdered and put them in the freezer. So when they recovered these kids' bodies, they had to take those kids to the morgue to thaw out for 3 days so an autopsy could be performed. And they were then identified as Stephen and Stony. And then the medical examiner ruled the deaths were homicides. And they had been in the freezer for at least a couple of years. Oh, I'm covering all of it. So if you want to send me the confession, you can. I got plenty of videos of this loony bird. Okay, so and I have to tell you, this is not sat well with me, this entire story. It's troubled me deeply. So here's a picture, photographic evidence of the house she was staying in. So y'all can see where the kids were. And yes, 2 years. And I'm going to the whole story of what happened specifically. So here are photographic pictures of the house. So this is a picture of the bathroom. That's her kitchen. I'm thinking this is a bedroom. I'm not sure. This is the freezer. This is the freezer that was sitting in the living room in the house. And you see there's a little chair here. So it looks like they were probably using this as a desk. But this is the freezer. Nothing in the refrigerator. This is a bedroom. This is where these children lived, in this. Look at this tub. This clearly is a kid's room. Okay. This is where these children were living. Okay. It is horrific. Hold on, let me pull up my thing here. All right, so let's continue. Okay, so I'm going to go over really quickly what happened and how all this took place. So Blair said that she returned home one day in August of 2012. So this happened in 2012. And she found her son Steven simulating sex acts with a toy, with a Barbie doll. And so Blair said, why are you doing that? Did anybody ever do this to you? So then Steven said that, oh, I'm sorry, the son, the other son is Matthew. Matthew said that Steven did it to him. So she said that she went upstairs. This is the 9-year-old Steven. She went upstairs and confronted Steven. Blair said that he confessed, and that when she began punching and kicking him, then she placed a garbage bag over his head until he lost consciousness. Then she stated that she repeatedly poured scalding hot water on his genitals, causing his skin to peel off. She also made him drink Windex underneath the sink and wrapped a belt around her son's neck, lifted him up and asked, "Do you like how this feels?" choked with the belt before he lost consciousness again. So she tortured this boy for 2 weeks, and he finally succumbed to his injuries and died in August of 2012. And then she put his body in the freezer. So that's 3 children that's left in the house. Add to the mix that they are being beaten and tortured, physical abuse, emotional abuse by their mother while this is going on. And then you see that your mother, who's supposed to protect you, killed your sibling. So then, 9 months later, after murdering Stephen, Blair found out that her 13-year-old daughter, Stony, was allegedly raping the youngest son. So then she began starving Stony, brutally beating her until she died on May 2013. So Stephen died in August of 2012. Stony died in May of 2013. So she didn't turn herself in because she claimed that the youngest son didn't want her to go. So Blair then put Stony's body in a plastic bag, stuffed her in the deep freezer on top of Stephen, and had the 18-year-old daughter stick her sister in the freezer on top of her brother. And I'm going to play that video of her admitting this in court. Okay, yeah, I got this one. Yeah, got him in court. I'm going to play that one in just a moment so you can hear from her own words. So basically, the timeline is that Stony was sexually abusing Stephen, and then both Stony and Stephen were allegedly sexually abusing Matthew. So Stony first started with Stephen first, the 9-year-old that she killed. So Stony started sexually abusing Stephen. Then Stony and Stephen started sexually abusing Matthew. Matthew was 6 at the time. So then Matthew told Blair about the sexual abuse that he suffered from Stephen, even though he was supposed to be getting sexually abused by Stephen and Stony. So then, according to what Blair said, that Stony started threatening and beating Stephen so he wouldn't tell on her. So then he told on Stephen, and Blair killed Stephen. And then later found out that Stoney was abusing Matthew this entire time. And that's when Blair went and decided to kill Stoney. All right. So I'm going to play. Yes, definitely trigger warning. I'm going to play her video of her confessing to what she did and how she did it. And she had absolutely no remorse at all. No remorse. Let me pull this up real quick. Oh, Vic got his no DQ night. Now, I hope you're not talking over this. All right, so here is Miss Blair giving her confession in court to tell us why she murdered her children.
What did you do to Stoney Blair that makes you guilty of premeditated murder?
She raped my son. I intentionally killed her.
How did you do that?
Starting from the beginning, when I found out about what Stoney was doing, it was 9 months later after finding out about Stephen. So for the whole 9 months we were in the house, she was still raping my child. I did not know that. When I first found out, after told me, I took a minute because I was not understanding, what was, that she did that to him. But I repeatedly punched her. On many occasions, my son, I told him to tell me every single thing she did to him. So as she was telling me, he was telling me more and more things that she did. I assaulted her every time he told me what she did to him. By assault, I mean I punched her. I have put a bag over her head till she lost consciousness. I threw hot water on her, scalding hot water from the faucet.
Did you hit her in the head with a wooden
Yes,
stick?
I hit her in her head multiple times, over and over.
Was that shortly before she died?
That was actually the day before she died and the day she died.
Okay.
I hit on her back, like on her tailbone. I kicked her. She would tell me how she would take her pad, her menstrual pad, and squeeze her blood out in his mouth. Okay. And it was over with after that. It was over with.
You meant to kill her?
I definitely meant to kill her.
Wasn't an accident?
No, not at all. If I had a chance to do it again, I would.
When you went and got the grocery bag and suffocated her, that was your intent?
Yes. She was standing in the bathtub. I was throwing hot water on her. My son was standing to my right outside the bathroom door, and he was telling me everything he was telling me. I looked at her and I'm like, "You did this?" And she was like, "Yes." So I actually had a stick and I was hitting her in the head. Every time he told me something, I hit her very hard in her head, and I was throwing hot water on her. And when I actually took her out of the bathroom, I took her back in her room and I just kept staring at her, and I said, excuse my language, I'm just like, I'm constantly asking her. She kept saying, "I hate him." And I'm like, "You hate him?" And she admitted to me that she hated Stephen. She hated everybody. And I'm asking her why. She says, everybody always think so cute. And I'm like, so you brother, because you get what I'm saying. So I meant to. I definitely meant to. And I do not feel any remorse for what I did to Stoney. She had no remorse for what she did to my son. It's not only raped him, she gang raped him with Stephen. We're all sitting on the floor and he was telling me, this is how I found out about both of them doing it together. It was too late. Stephen was gone. But told me that Stoney would actually make him sit there while, in his words, her and Stoney did the nasty stuff, and then they did it to him. And
so this was your way of inflicting punishment?
Definitely.
Okay. Where did that happen?
What?
Where did it?
The death.
Her actual death.
Yes.
Right.
Not the location of the house. Where did you live at the time?
Oh.
Was that the city of Detroit?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Did you ever actually see anything of any sexual abuse of any kind between either Stephen and Stoney?
I reject her question, but I will answer it because no one will say that this did not happen because it actually did.
I just want to have a clear record. Because so far, all you've told me was that you just heard it. Did you ever
And
actually
that they
see it?
admitted it. No, I did not. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I
But
understand.
as I went back in my head and thought back to all the many things that was wrong with you over the years, and I'm like, that's what was wrong with you? He'd use the bathroom and say, Mom, my butt hurts when I poop. I don't know. So I started giving him 100% juice to make his stool softer, maybe to help him use. But that wasn't the problem. It wasn't his stool. It was that he was being raped. Okay. My son looked me in my eyes and he gave me a very detailed account of everything they did. He's not a violent boy. He is a very sweet little boy. So for him to stand there and look at me and say, do it again, he was hurting. You know,
Okay.
at a certain point, I told him to stop talking. And I said, Stoney, you tell me it to my son. And I said, if she's saying anything that's not right, tell me. She started telling me many things. And I also asked her, so why didn't Stephen tell me that when I asked him, did anybody do this to him? Why didn't he tell me that you did it to him? Because Stoney was going upstairs, beating Stephen's ass, threatening him. Basically, at a certain point, after I was hitting Stephen, I didn't want to look at him. I didn't want to look at him. So I told him to go to his room. When it came time to eat, I didn't want to take no food up. So I sent Stoney up because she volunteered, not knowing at that time that Stoney was raping either of them. But every time she went upstairs, I wouldn't have known if she hit him or not because I had put many bruises on him. So every time she went upstairs, she admitted to me that she was hitting him also, knocking the hell out of him, telling him, you better not tell her nothing. You get what I'm saying?
I understand. When she admitted these things to you, were you always being physical with her?
The first time, no, we were sitting there.
Okay.
She denied it constantly. I'm like, Stoney, you better tell me. Sitting here, he don't know nothing about it. He constantly, you get what I'm saying? Who would admit that? Who would admit that if they did not do it?
Tell me what happened to Stephen.
I came home one day. My daughter, my oldest, met me at the door and she's like, Mom, come see what he's doing with his dials. And I'm like, what is he doing? He was making one dial, his little wrestle man, hump on top of the other. No, I'm like, why was you doing that? I said, anybody ever do this to you? He said, no. I said, then why are you doing that? And he said, yes, Stephen did. And I was like, so this is the first I'm hearing about that, period. This was 9 months before Stoney. Okay, Stoney wasn't downstairs, and she was always in the background. I wish to God I had questioned everybody together, but I didn't.
Did you say this was around August 30th, 2012?
No, this was before August 30th. August 30th is when he died. This was maybe a week and a half.
Before he died?
Yes.
Okay. So that, telling you that some action.
Yes, I went upstairs because Stephen was upstairs in his room. And I went upstairs and I said, Stephen, you said you was humping on him. And then Stephen stood up and he looked at me. And right then I could tell something was wrong in his face because he was just like this. Any normal kid, I know my kid would have been like, what? That's not what he did. He stood up and looked at me like he had lost his mind. Okay? And it just hearing that from him had me up in my head, period. But I asked him, I said, Stephen, tell me the truth. Was you humping on? He said, yes, but that was all. And I said, did you hump on him with your underwear off? He said, no. He yelled out, yes, he did. And I just remember going in the hallway, walking back and forth, like, and I walked back up and I was like, you your brother? You get what you your brother. So I'm looking at them too. I'm looking at them like, what? I can't understand. So I start punching Stephen. You know, I'm like, what are you doing to him? I just start asking him questions. At this point, it's just spilling out He's just spilling out. And mom, and he's doing like this, and he do this thing almost every night. He tell me how he was, the reason I put bags over Steven's head is because I thought eating the bed. My son was never a bedwetter. Didn't know it was Steven waking up every morning, pissing on like he was a damn piece of shit. Okay? They had bunk beds. Steven would get out the bed in the middle of the night. You rape him in his own bed. You pee on him instead of going to the bathroom. I'm waking up every morning thinking he's a bedwetter. So we just wash him up and going, you a bedwetter.
Let's
So-
talk about what you did to Steven.
The reason I put bags over Steven's head is because my son told me that the plastic on his bed, because I thought he was a bedwetter, he said, sometimes, Mom, I couldn't breathe. Steven was laying on me and he had my face down in the plastic on the bed. I couldn't breathe and he was humping on my butt like a basketball. That's when I got a garbage bag and started putting it over Steven's head. And I started asking him, bitch, you know what I'm saying? You see what this feel like? You can't breathe? You stop my, that's my son. You could not breathe on top of getting raped. He was 6 years old at the time. You get what I'm saying? So I put the bags over his head. He lost consciousness. I did that a couple times. He tell me that would be face down. He had stuff around his neck. So I grabbed Steven, I grabbed a belt and I put a belt around his neck and I lifted him up like, do you like how this feels? Being choked with a belt. So I dropped him. I held him up until he lost consciousness as well.
You were intending to.
No, I did not intend to kill Steven.
No, I'm not. What's my question? You were intending to inflict serious physical harm, but not kill him.
Definitely.
Did you also punch him?
Yes, I did. Multiple
also kick
times.
him?
Yes, I did.
Talk about choking. Did you also burn him?
Yes, I did.
Okay, how did you do that?
Hot water, scalding hot water. In our bathroom, the hot water gets extremely hot. So, his private area, I stood him in the bathtub naked. You my son with Joe, you know? So yes, I threw hot water in his genital area multiple times. Every time Steven peed in my son's eyes. He put his in his ears, his nose. He peed. He even told me one time, Mom, and in my eyes, he said it was gooey, but it wasn't pee. And right then, it was like, I didn't even know a 9-year-old could ejaculate. You get what I'm saying? So not only did you do that, you did it in my son's eyes. So my son had to go through all of this shit. So yes, I threw hot water on him repeatedly.
Did you make him burn?
Yes, it did. His skin came off.
Did you
His
also
skin
make
came
him
off.
drink Windex?
Yes, I did, because he told me in the middle of the night he had took him in the basement and he made him drink the blue stuff from under the sink. And I'm like, what blue stuff? So I walked downstairs. He showed me what I said. You made drink Windex. And then I went back to like years before, and I'm like, is this what was wrong with him? I thought he had the stomach flu, where you vomit and have diarrhea. You get at the same time. This is what was going around. A lot of people had it, so this is what I thought he had. He didn't. Steven made him drink Windex. So yes, I made that boy drink Windex.
Let's try and clarify the record. Okay, again, you knew you were seriously harming him, but you didn't intend to murder him.
No.
Okay. But your actions ultimately caused his death.
Yes, they did.
Okay. Were you Steven's mother?
Yes.
He was in your custody?
I don't claim him as my son now, and I do not claim Stoney as my daughter. I have 2 children. That's it. Steven and
time he
Stoney
died?
are demons, period.
That's my question. At the time he died, he was in your custody or care?
Yes.
How old was he?
Steven was 9.
And again, did this happen at your house in the city of Detroit?
Yes.
What you did to Steven was punishment for what you did. Is that right?
For what he did to
Sorry.
Yes.
For what Steven did.
Yeah.
That was punishment.
And if I had killed Steven intentionally, I definitely would be proud to say I did. But I didn't. But I know all the things that I did to him, how I hurt him, I know it did cause his death. You know what I'm saying? It was like that day, the day that he died, I went in his room, it was throw up in front of him on the bed. I got him up. He said he had to go to the bathroom, but he couldn't use the bathroom. By the time he came out the bathroom, his breathing was crazy. Steven usually has a strong heartbeat, but it was really faint, really, really faint. And then all of a sudden, he just started going like this, and I was holding him. We both sitting on the floor, and I'm actually holding him up. He couldn't even hold himself. I'm like, Steven, doing like this, because the day before that, I actually said I'm gonna stop, because I looked in the room and like, he is toe up, you know.
Were you starving him at this time?
No, I was not. I never starved him, and that's another thing that, and I understand that he may have lost weight, but because they had their hands and they controlled him in every type of way, down to food. They would take his meat basically. We didn't always eat together. I thought him and Steven was very close, so Steven would manipulate me. Mom, can we be up in our room? I'm like, yeah, go ahead. I'm thinking that's his best friend, that's his brother. That's how he made it think. That's a lie. He kept up under his wing on purpose. Man, never wanted to be around Steven, and I don't know how I didn't see that. So they would take his food and would actually only let him eat his vegetables. So yes, when I fed Steven, he only got vegetables and like healthy things, and it was minimal, like oatmeal and things like that. He did not get meat. You stole from my son, and actually when I tried to feed him, my son said, Mom, that's bold. They used to take my food all the time. That's bold. You get what I'm saying? So yes. Now Stony, I did starve her. I did. 9 more months, you going, your big ass. She was 13. My son told me how she used to sit on his face, and he said, Mom, it stinks real bad. And she was, you know what I'm saying? Yes, I did. And then oatmeal is all that girl got. And she's lucky she got that once a day.
Stony only got oatmeal?
Oatmeal once a day. She's very lucky she got that. And I even have to hide the fact that I was giving her oatmeal for because he didn't want me to feed her, and he had every right to feel that way.
Hold on, just Blair, can we get next one?
No, I'm good.
You're okay? Okay. I just have a few more questions. When you were physically harming Steven, was it ever your intent to also cause any sort of serious mental harm?
He said, well, I don't understand what you mean.
When you were hurting him physically, was it also your intent to cause any sort of serious mental harm?
What do you mean, mentally damage him?
Yes.
Like beating him in the head?
No, like making it so that his thoughts aren't right.
No,
Does that
never.
make sense? Okay.
Physical punishment on what you did to my child, because I had always told my kids the worst thing you can ever do to somebody is break them. I always told my son that, and I always told the girls the worst thing you could do is cry rape on somebody if they didn't rape. They fully knew what they were doing.
So you were only intending physical punishment?
Yes.
All right, now, just so that I'm clear, you weren't allowing them to treat your other children like this, were you?
What do you mean?
You weren't allowing them to sexually assault.
I wasn't allowing
Right,
that. I never knew.
That's exactly,
You get what I'm saying?
That's exactly what I wanted to know. You didn't know until afterwards.
It's like,
Am I right?
yes.
Okay.
It's this one instance I was asleep. Why you didn't tell me? He said, Mom, I even ran in the hallway and I had your hand. I was asleep. My son ran out and grabbed my hand. He was 6 and he was doing like this, trying to wake me up. Steven was grabbing him back by the back of his shirt, pulling me. And I said, why didn't you just scream out? He said, I don't know. You get what I'm saying? He even had my hand pulling on me, trying to wake me up. And since I'm a hard sleeper, I didn't wake up. So to hear my son say that to me is real up that should happen right up under my nose. So, man, I don't regret none of this. I don't regret any of it. With my son, that's my baby. There's no way that his brother and sister should know what he feels like inside. There's no way.
Understood.
I don't feel no remorse for the death of them demons.
Okay. All right. I'm going to accept the plea unless either counsel's dissatisfied. Oh.
Like I said, this one it doesn't sit well with me. It don't sit well with me at all. So you heard her confession. So she said everything that she did. So the question that I saw in the chat a lot was, where did the children learn about this sexual abuse, right? Well, more than likely they learned it from Blair. They learned it from Blair. She wove this tale of sexual abuse between the children, and then she cast herself as the mother who would go to any lengths to protect her son. She, as a child, though, had been sexually abused. And when she had told her mother, her mom's only response to her was, well, what do you want me to do about it? It's over with now. So that experience there is the reason why Michelle says she killed her children. Because in her view, because she always told the children that rape is the worst act you can commit against another person, that the abuse taking place between her children was done in a willing and knowing manner. So basically, she was saying that those children, 13 and 9, had sense enough to know and understand rape. That's what she's saying, that a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old understands the gravity of sex and rape just from somewhere. And that doesn't happen. For a child to behave in sexually inappropriate manners, that means that they've been exposed to that by someone. Because that's not the mind of a child. So, so in her mind, okay, her children weren't abused in desperate need of help. They were unfixable, damaged goods. And so death, as Michelle saw it, was the only option. Also, it's worth noting that the remaining children, Gabrielle and Matthew, the beloved one that she killed 2 of her other children for, were covered in bruises and scars, which indicated that her abusive behavior was a way of life and not a response to a trigger that set her off one time that led her to killing her children. And top it all off, there was no evidence, no physical evidence that he had been molested. However, with little children, all their parts aren't fully there yet. So, it could have happened, it could have not. But the fact of the matter is, she went and took it to the extreme, not seeking, talking to someone, calling someone, trying to, get these 2 some help because they're children. She went right off into, I'm going to torture and murder them. A 13 and a 9-year-old. So, there were extensive medical examinations carried out on the kids. They had marks and scars and bruises found all over the surviving children. And there was marks and bruises and scars found on Stoney and Stephen from before the assault. No, she blamed everything on the 13-year-old because the 13-year-old was the one who started preying on the 9-year-old, and then the 13 and 9-year-old both together started preying on the 6-year-old, according to Michelle. So all the marks and scars came at the hand of their mother, who was supposed to love and protect them. So I'm going to play for you her interview where she talked about her sexual rape experience and sort of her thought process as to how this made sense to her. So I'm going to play that for you so you can hear in her own words what she says. Is that the one? Ah, yes. So this is her jailhouse interview.
Can you talk me through the type of abuse that you had to suffer as a kid,
Oh,
You mean sexual abuse?
if that's what happened?
That definitely did happen to me. That's why I know exactly how would have grew up. I told my mother what happened to me. And the only thing she said was, it's over with. So what the you want me to do about it? What do you mean what I want you to do? You get what I'm saying? So all I could do is go back and sit in my room and just sit there and look stupid. I'm a kid. And I'm just telling you what happened to me. You didn't do about it. And plus, I still had to see the person coming in and out my house. You still friends with that person.
So do you believe that the violent person you went on to become you were a product of your own childhood?
I mean, everybody have choices. So I can't just blame all that on my mom because I was still an adult. Maybe I should have tried hard to get over that. But anybody who knows me, that touching the kids, the molesting, that no. If that's one thing I definitely would have killed over, it would have always been that. It's like I grew up
So y'all, my mic on? Oh yeah. So y'all see that she is comparing her children to an adult mentality. Like they should have the emotional intelligence to understand the gravity of what they are doing if they in fact did it. And then where was her emotional intelligence to realize that these are children?
even tried to talk to my mom when I got in my mid-20s. She had strokes and things like that. And I'm like, Mom, she could barely talk. You could barely talk. She had so many strokes. And I'm telling you what my problem was always with you. The hitting and all that. I just asked you to do something. The person lives around the corner on this particular time, it was just a woman named. She lived around the corner. She want to walk around like she big and bad all day. My mama, you big and bad. Everybody's scared of you. But when I come to you with some real and I tell you what happened to me, you didn't walk your around that corner and do to that woman like a coward. So no. And this is why I say my kids knew better because I've always told them everything that happened to me.
So there you have it. That's where they learned it from. She told the kids everything that happened to her. Everything that happened to her. And I'm pretty sure that she told them in a graphic manner everything that happened to her. That's where they learned it from.
I told them why, because I don't understand why it took me so long to tell my mom when I was a kid. You never talked to me about like this, but when I did come to you, you didn't do. So I always made sure I told my kids this. I told them what happened to me, how it happened to me, how it made me feel in detail. And I say, if anybody ever touches y'all, you better tell me. They knew. I always talk to my kids about that touching from anybody. So they definitely knew. And this is the part that really gets me. I used to tell her, rape is the worst thing you can do. Just make it. I tell her all the time. They used to make me feel like I was nothing. It made me feel like I wasn't. You turn around and you do that to my son, you knew exactly what she was doing to him. She knew exactly what the fuck she was doing to him. So yeah, I don't care what anybody thinks.
At 13, she knew exactly what she was doing to a 6-year-old at 13. Do y'all remember what you were doing at 13? You was talking on the phone, playing, music, looking at clothes, just now, trying to holler at boys. Women learn how to be catty at 13. You're trying to get your parents to drop you off so you can hang at the mall with your friends. At 13, was your mind on anything like this at the age of 13? I would never have understood what any of this was at 13. Yeah. You know, trying to get kissed in the closet or at the little wherever you are, at the little party, got your little outfit on, because you looking at one of the little ugly big headed boys somewhere, little nappy headed boys. Yeah, preteen shit. Yes. You was doing the preteen shit. Talking about different musical artists, little young hookers now probably like Chris Brown and other stuff. Going to the skating rink, going to the movies. Yes. Sneaking on the phone. That's what you did at 13. Not none of this. Absolutely. And she had, I'm going to get into all of that too. Deadbeat dads and failed relate. Yes. And lack of support. Yes. I'm going to get into that too. Okay. But let's continue.
She had to go, period.
She had to go.
So I damn sure wasn't about to let grow up mad as hell all the damn time, can't trust nobody. When it was just as simple as, you're my mother, do something.
So, so you murder his brother and sister in front of him based upon his word. So he would have to live with guilt, that he's responsible kind of for killing his brother and sister. And so you think that won't scar him, that he won't remember his brother and sister dead in a freezer in the living room for 2 years while she's still beating them, living in an atmosphere of fear, because who knows what could happen. Mama kill brother and sister, I could be next. I could be next.
Didn't call the police, didn't do, just said it's over with now. What the you want me to do about it? That's my response.
But you didn't call the police.
So yeah, that's the problem. And this is what can happen to a kid. When like that goes, that wasn't happening to my son, period. So when I say he got closure, he got it. I know exactly what he was feeling. Even when my son was talking to me about some of the stuff,
Watch
he would
this.
go like this to his face. And he was like, Mom, and it felt so nasty. And that right there, I knew exactly what he was doing. I knew how he was feeling because that's how I used to feel. When he did that, I knew it. There ain't no amount of talking. It was, no.
So what she felt as a child, her experience as a child, she was going and reliving the trauma, and she was projecting that trauma onto her children. She projected this trauma onto her children. Instead of her addressing her trauma and dealing with it, well, she decided to address it, I guess the only way she thought that she could was murder her children and then hide them for 2 years. If it wasn't a problem, why you hit them?
So when you tell me she's a 13-year-old child, okay. Some of the most heinous crimes in this world has been by kids. So I don't want to hear that. That's my family. I don't give a damn what America thinks. But I also want to tell America they can kiss my ass. Don't throw no stones, because they got a whole lot coming their way too.
Wonderful.
They just feel more comfortable for them to be able to say, well, my sin is not as bad as yours. At least I didn't kill my kid. God's eyes, we all down here.
You notice that a lot of killers and murderers and rapists and stuff utter that same phrase. Yeah, you're trying to. Nature Boy says that a lot. You're trying to throw stones at me. You're talking about my life and my problems, but you got problems. As if somehow that absolves you from what you did. That's what it takes for you to sleep good at night, I guess.
That's period.
Okay.
But I love and I love and I'm always love him. That's my son.
So, yeah. So, oh, oh Lord, wait a minute. Oh Lord, somebody left the kid in the oven? My goodness. Oh, well, I got another one to do next week then. Put him in the oven. Wow. So this phenomenon that we're going through, that we're saying, this is called filicide. Filicide, I know you've heard of suicide and matricide and patricide. So, suicide is when you kill yourself. Matricide is when you go and you kill your mother. Patricide is when you kill your father. And then filicide is when adults kill their children. So people want to know, how did nobody know about this? Where were the fathers? Where were the fathers at? How can children be missing for years? Thank you. Children are missing for years, and there's no questions being asked, no alarms being raised, nothing. Nothing. Well, what happened was Michelle Blair had killed Stephen, right? No, she wasn't eating them. She's not Dahmer. She just killed the kids and put them in the freezer to bide her time. So the schools weren't calling because in Michigan they don't have a duty to. It's not where it's a criminal. It's a crime, and then it's truancy. It's you can pull your kids out of school and you don't have to report to the state or anything like that. So for most places, when a parent pulls a child out of school, that's usually like a front for abuse, and that's when the state and everybody is checking to make sure that that child is okay. But in Michigan, it doesn't work that way. You can pull them out and nobody will say anything or do anything. That's just how Michigan is. So that's how she was able to get with it. So after she had killed Stephen, she knew that, well, school's gonna, because she killed him in August. So school starts back in September. So she knew, well, one kid gonna be missing. I can't have people asking where Stephen is. So I'm telling them that I'm moving. So I'm pulling the kids out of school because I'm moving. But she didn't go anywhere. She kept them in the house. Her mother, the kid's grandmother, lived in in the same apartment building that they stayed in, but somehow missed two children. Michelle knew how to keep people away at arm's length and tell people, oh, well, Stony and Steven are over here, or they're over here. They're mad at you. They don't want to talk to you. And was able to pull that for 2 years. So I am going to play. Let me see. What part is this? That was that. So I can go ahead and cut that one off. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play part of the custody hearing where she was telling them, how she came up with, keeping people away and, her thought process on the children and keeping people from discovering that the children were not there, and all the lengths that she went to lie and cover up her crime, even though she was happy that she did it. But again, she lied for 2 years. Oh, by the way, the fathers, all the fathers were deadbeats, right? They both owed thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in back child support. One of them was in jail for a long period of time, and they had not seen their children in years. I'm talking when they were alive, hadn't seen them in years, or may come over, and have a porch visit, but that's it. That's the extent of it. So after the murders happened and she got arrested, the state was going to, oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. The state is going to, was having a hearing to terminate her and the other two fathers' rights from the other two children. So of course, Michelle is very bitter. She's very angry, talking about these fathers. And I won't prolong it any further. I'll let y'all hear from the horse's mouth.
What is your understanding of this hearing?
To place the children in the best possible environment, period, and permanently.
Okay. Now, you understand that you heard the testimony of Dr. Henry. That was this morning, correct?
Yes,
And you understand that the recommendation is for the termination of your parental rights.
as it should be. I have never even had a desire to fight for my rights. I understand everything I've done. I've never denied anything. My rights should be taken. What I have been fighting for, and the only thing I've ever cared about, is their rights.
Let me ask you a question, okay? I understand you're anxious to get your testimony out, but I have to do it by question and answer, okay?
Okay.
Now, through the trial and earlier, there's been allegation that you prevented both of the fathers, Mr. Dorsey and Mr. Berry, from visiting. Is that true?
That's a total lie. I never prevented either of them from coming to see them. They were ridiculous.
Let's start with Mr. Dorsey. He is Gabrielle's father, correct?
Yes.
And did he ever live with you and Gabrielle?
Ever. And that was his big problem also in the beginning of why he disappeared in the first place.
When did he first disappear?
I want to say when I moved out, Alexander Dorsey was so pissed that I wouldn't let him move in with me. He didn't come see Gabby, and she was a baby. Gabby was only 9 months old. He didn't come see Gabby for months and months. Why? He couldn't understand the fact I did not want to be with him. I never stopped him from seeing her, though.
You hear this shit? Do you hear this shit? So because she didn't want to be with him, he wasn't going to come and see his children. Okay. That sounds like a lie to me. That doesn't make any logical sense at all.
Did you place any type of limitations on his parenting time?
Never. I'm the one that used to call them.
And the killing part is they talking about Gabby. Gabby is the 18-year-old. That's the oldest one. So of course, he came back for seconds if you had two with him. So this is this is a lie. If I ever heard one.
Well, let's just, so that we can keep it straight. Right now, all my questions are being directed towards Mr. Dorsey, okay?
Okay.
So did you ever place any limits whatsoever on his parenting time?
No.
And let's start after 2005. What was Mr. Dorsey's visitation?
People over there, they should start coming to get the kids. It will always be me having to initiate it. I would ask Gabby and Sony, do you want to go over there? If they said yes, I called them. He'd always have some excuse, oh, I don't have gas. When you started saying you don't have gas, I got someone, my neighbor, or I would give them gas to get the kids over there.
So how often would you say that Mr. Dorsey visited with Stoney and Gabrielle?
If you go over there, I want to say, at one point, it was actually every weekend. I would have them go over there. I would actually take them over there every weekend. Like I said, I would have to initiate it. He would try to back out saying, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that. I bring them anyway. I'm saying if they want to see you, what's the problem? You get what I'm saying? I've always tried to initiate that. He couldn't understand.
Give us the time frame for that. How old was Gabrielle?
What do you mean?
I said, how old was Gabrielle at that time?
I think she was 8.
Okay. Let's bring it closer. Within the last, say, 4 years, how often did Mr. Dorsey visit?
Did you say 4 years?
Within the last 3 to 4 years.
It was crap. It was crap. And actually, from 08, 09, and 2010, Alexander Dorsey didn't see them at all. We were only like 20 minutes away from each other. I would call, oh, Duke not here, Duke not here. And it was always crap. So I just got tired of trying and I just stopped. We would always have to be the ones initiating.
So from 2008 and 2009, and they were 20 minutes apart, Alexander Dorsey did not see his two daughters. 20 minutes. Couldn't be bothered.
At one point, I even stopped calling and told Gabby, if you want to see him, you call. She got to run around. So we just stopped. You know what I mean? But when he finally popped back up, I never kept him away. My door was always open. There were never porch visits.
When you said he popped back up, when did that take place?
The first time he popped back up, I want to say in 2011, I forget around what time, whether it was summer, spring, or whatever, but he just showed up. And I'm like, so you realize they not dead, they alive, right? That's what I always used to say to him. Everybody could be dead, you wouldn't even know it. That's kind of ironic in light of what happened. But
Took the words right out of my mouth.
You don't know what's going on with nobody over here. You care about us, but we argued, but he came in the house. And what I would do was either go upstairs, go in the back room. He talked to the girls for a second, and then he just has to just gravitate to where I am. And it's like, you don't even come over to see them. You come to see what I'm doing. It's like, I don't want to be bothered with him. So that's what when we get into arguments when he came over. You can never just fixate on the kids. You always got to come around me. And I'm saying, talk to the kids, stay the hell out of my face.
Did Mr. Dorsey ever provide you any type of support, monetary or otherwise?
At one point, I think for a year straight, it was child support being paid. That was for a year. Out of all the years they were alive, that was for a year. Now, when they say...
Was that through the Friends of the Court or direct to you?
The Friends of the Court. And at that time, we hadn't even seen Alexander Dorsey. All of a sudden, it was just, I'm looking like, what is this? You get what I'm saying? It was child support in the mail. And I'm like, oh, he must be working. We wasn't even seeing him at that time. So that was a surprise to me. And I actually went over there to tell him thank you. Because I didn't know how that worked with the child support. I actually didn't put that on him. The FIA did. So I actually went over there to thank him. You get what I'm saying? So it was, they just blame me for everything, and it's like it's an easy scapegoat for them.
Now, you indicated in terms of, you mentioned the porch visit. Did Mr. Dorsey visit by coming and visiting with Gabrielle on the porch of your home?
No, they did not. And that's the main reason why I wanted Gabby to be called. But once I heard she was nervous, I wasn't going to do that to her and make her get on the stand. But she could also verify that. But there were never any porch visits. That don't even sound right. Who would sit on the porch for an hour? Alexander Dorsey's ex-girlfriend, she said there were years of porch visits. First off, the last time she's ever seen them was in 2006. You get what I'm saying? 2006. So everybody's gonna understand lying. There were never any porch visits.
Okay. Now, what about Mr. Berry? What was his parenting time schedule, if there was one?
There was never a parenting time schedule. Stephen also disappeared, but his was just like, Stephen will come around, like for, let's say, 3 days, 3 or 4 days, and then you don't see him again for 7, 8, 9 months. Then he popped back up, and it's like, what the, you get what I'm saying? He just comes back like, I remember he came to the door one day, one of the kids let him in, he talking about daddy's home. Like it's a joke or something. You get what I'm saying?
Miss Blair, the time, give us the time frame of when you're describing this. When did this happen?
This has been all, okay, when we first had Stephen, even before Stephen, it was like, before we had the kids, he was always there. When it was just us, me, Gabby, Stoney, and him, he was always there. After Stephen came, I want to say he left 3 months later. He never got up. He never did anything for Stephen, never did anything. Never got up in the middle of the night, never did anything. But when his friends knock on the door at 12 o'clock midnight, he out the door. Like a little kid. He never wants to just sit down and be a father.
Okay, there was a period of time that Mr. Berry was incarcerated, correct?
Yes.
After, I believe it was in 2012, after his release,
2013.
13? Thank you. Did he come to visit with his kids?
Well, first he sent a letter. He mailed a letter somewhere around in April, and he asked me to come see him. He was on a tether, and at that time, he couldn't leave at all. So I took Matthew over there, and we used to go over there a lot. Actually, I'm the one that even used to go to the grocery store for Stephen. So when he said that I never left him alone with Matthew, that's a lie. They were there for multiple times, over 2 hours with each other on the Vinewood. We used to always go over there and spend a night.
When he was released, how long was he untethered, if you recall?
I think he got off a tether, totally off a tether, August, but before that, he actually got time out. Like, you had to be in the house, like, I want to say maybe 3 or 4. He had to be back in the house or something. He had to be on a work release thing, so he would actually come over to the house every once in a while. You see what I'm saying? So, how many times he asked about Stephen? I didn't have to keep saying Stephen was at my aunt. Stephen was at my aunt. He didn't ask about him like that. That wasn't Stephen's way. That's not how he is.
When he was off tether, did he increase his parenting time?
No, you barely saw Stephen. I remember when I first tracked back up to Stephen, actually Stephen Berry's attorney, who she called Victoria Johnson, she actually took me out to Stephen Berry, well, in Redford, where he's living right now on, I want to say, 2014, August 6th. I definitely remember that. I couldn't find him. I know Matthew's birthday was coming up August 18th, and I wanted to find him, like, where are you? Are you going to be there for Matthew's birthday? He was home. Me and him started walking. He thought Matthew's birthday was on August 16th, like he always did, but he was telling me, oh, I was out of town. And I'm trying like, what do you mean out of town? Basically, since Stephen's a womanizer, when he even in his own testimony said he went to Georgia with a friend. No, he went to Georgia to meet up with a female that he met online to have sex with for a month.
So somebody is angry about this one in particular, going and being with someone that they met online and having sex with for a month, even though y'all are broken up and you only care about whether or not they're going to co-parent with your son. Why is this even an issue? Why are you mentioning this at all? Why does it even matter? Sounds like you're bitter baby mama, and probably decided to kill maybe the favorite child of the father. There's no telling. But this story, you're right, it doesn't make any sense at all. It makes no logical, rational sense. But again, this is a person who thought that you could paint a child and give them the rational mind of an adult. She's, weighing them the same as you would, a grown man or a grown woman.
Thank you. Questions have been asked with regard to your relationship with your aunt, Miss Ford. What type of relationship did you have?
So they're talking about her bad and failed relationships with the fathers because this is a custody hearing for the 2 remaining children. So both the deadbeat fathers are trying to so the state is trying to terminate the parental rights for all 3 of them. And so the fathers are trying to fight for their children for once. And so this is part of, the history of the relationship and how things deteriorated to a point. So
my aunt is like a really loving person, and I don't appreciate Stephen Berry's lawyer trying to attack her character. What I will...
Just my question.
Okay.
What type of relationship do you have with your aunt?
It was kind of difficult for her.
What does this have to do with the best interest of
as Ms. Anderson herself was going into and trying to somehow slander the reputation of Ms. Gordon, we have a right to go back and ask the person who she was saying that allegedly Ms. Gordon should have known something. I can build into this for the best interest of where we believe the children should be as to what Ms. Gordon knew or didn't know and what the relationship between Ms. Gordon and Ms. Blair was.
Well, the obvious proposal on to replace it, so to the extent it's supposed to best interest, it's okay.
Thank you. What was your relationship with your aunt?
At one point, it was really good, but I can be honest about this fact. My auntie knew nothing, okay? And I actually purposely made it that way.
Okay, you ask questions. You can't do a narrative before this rule, okay? When did your relationship with your aunt change?
After I found out about what Stephen was doing.
Okay. And can you give me a time period for that?
That was in August. That was in August of 2012.
Okay, so she better tell you her lie.
Well, I basically stopped talking to my aunt, period. At one point, she used to come over every day. That's how she was. Like, she loved us. She loved all of us. Like, she checked for us. If one wasn't there, she was looking like, hey, we're there upstairs. She loved all of us. And I knew if anybody would know anything was wrong, it would be my aunt. So I purposely kept her away, meaning I was just nasty to her for no reason. You get what I'm saying? And it hurt her. That really hurt her because I know she missed me, she missed the kids, but she never stopped coming. She would knock on her door. Sometimes I would open the door like, what? You get what I'm saying? And it hurt me to do that to her because I love that lady, you know? But I made her feel basically like,
you know, the meaning of the word love.
She couldn't come. You get what I'm saying? But one thing I didn't have to do is I didn't have to do that with Alexander Dorsey and Stephen Barry because they were never around anyway. So that's why I took extra care to be that way with my aunt because she was the only one that would really know that something was not right. From the moment she walked in that house, she was looking for everybody. She loved us. The only person in my entire life who's ever loved.
Now, your two children, Gabrielle and Matthew, are placed with your aunt. Do you believe that that's in their best interest?
That would be in the best interest of any child to be placed in their home. My auntie is one of the people, and my Uncle Daryl, she's just one of those people who just does what she's supposed to do, like just down to very small things, like her ethics, her work ethic, just everything about her. For instance, I was playing around with Gabby one day. You know how you pat somebody on the back of the head? Like, I think Gabby said something to me. We were just joking around with each other, but she thought it was too rough, so she grabbed Gabby and she hugged her and rubbed the back of her head. Even though she knew me and her was playing, she goes, "Oh my God, don't worry, what's up?" You know, just she's real gentle. It's whatever needs to be met.
You listened to the testimony of Dr. Henry this morning and the extensive needs of both of your children. Do you think your aunt can provide for those needs?
She most definitely can. Whatever needs to be done, I don't care if she had to ride out to Timbuktu, she would get there. Auntie Angie would break her neck because as of right now, I know it's killing her inside because she's very worried about their future. And I know what's got her the most is she want to make sure their heads are going to be right, basically, so they won't turn out like me. You know what I mean? My auntie is a very gentle person. She's even-tempered. There's no other place for them to be. And I'm in prison, so I don't understand what's the objection to them being with my aunt. It's not like they're going to have communication with me. I'm in prison. You understand what I'm saying? My aunt is not, she's as pissed at me as everybody else is. Believe that. She wants what's best for them in the worst way.
Okay, Michelle, those are the questions I had for you. The other council may have questions, okay?
Can I also just say something? Because this is about my character, right? For the best interest.
The other attorneys will have questions for you. We're going to go around. So, Ms. Macy's going to be last. We'll go around the table with Anderson. We'll start with you. Probably with Ms. Burns. Let's see Ms. Blair can see you.
Ms. Blair, can you see me?
See you and I hear you.
Are you asking the court to take your advice on what's best for your children?
What do you mean by that?
Do you want the court to follow your advice on the best interest of your children?
I want them to do what they're setting out to do, is put them where the best place is for them to be.
Okay.
It's not just my advice, it's a fact.
You know what the best place for your children is that right?
Say it again?
You know what's in your children's best interest.
I know for sure it's not me, but I also
N-
definitely
That's
know it's
truth.
my aunt and my uncle Daryl. Actually, if I had been in their care coming up as a child, I wouldn't be sitting right here today.
Do you believe you know what's in your children's best interest as to where they should live?
Yes, I do.
She answered yes, Your Honor. Did you believe it was in your children's best interest to beat them, torture them, and kill Joni and Stephen?
Tony and Stephen, that's a different subject. So we're talking about Matthew and Gabrielle right now in the best interest. So we're just gonna stick with that, right? See, now I know what you're doing. You're trying to go to my credibility. I just said I've admitted to every wrong thing that I've done. Yes, I'm a violent.
No, she murdered 2 of her children, not 1. 2. 2.
Okay.
Do you believe it was in Stephen and Stoney's best interest to beat, torture, and kill them?
They were raping my son, so I think we know the answer to that.
Do you believe it was in Gabrielle and Matthew's best interest to beat them?
It definitely is not. That shows as a reflection of how I am. That was not in their best interest.
Do you believe it was in your children, Gabrielle and Matthew's best interest to witness you killing at least one of your children?
The one that was raping him for years.
Did you understand my question?
I understood your question. Did you understand my answer?
No, I'm just trying to understand.
She engaged in the dialogue. She engaged in the dialogue when she was dialoguing back with her.
This is question and answer. This is not a conversation.
I understand, Bossing. I told you, I got trigger warning up here.
Did you believe it was in Gabby and Maddie's best interest to you witnessing you kill at least one of your children?
I don't know, Judge, this line of questioning is not relevant. Mother already stated that she knows her rights are going to be terminated, so I don't know where this line of questioning is going. It really has no bearing.
This is completely relevant. The mother's up there testifying that she knows what's in the best interest of her children. And I'm allowed to attack that credibility, you know.
You can take a credibility, but the point is, the issue on the table is whether or not it's in the best interest of Gabrielle and Matthew that the parental rights of the 2 fathers in this Blair be terminated. The other things that happen don't come into the equation.
I'll move on here. You indicated that Mr. Berry visited Matthew on a regular basis over at his place of residence after he was released in 2013.
No, not a regular basis.
Did you say you brought him over, Matthew, over to see you?
Yes, I did.
Okay, how
Yes,
often?
I did.
How often?
Most of the time, I want to say we actually were there without leaving for a week and a half. And after that, Matthew said he wanted to go home. So I took Matthew home. Stephen Berry would always ask me to come back. So I went back. But there was never consistency with Stephen Berry and Matthew. He barely even talked to him.
And you said there were times when you left Matthew alone with Mr. Berry?
Yes, I did. When I went to the grocery store, Stephen Berry.
All right, so you weren't concerned about leaving Matthew alone with his father?
No, I was not. I was the only one abusing them. I never accused them of abusing their kids. I just
Oh.
said they were never there. They were dead.
So she just admitted she was the only one abusing them.
True that after Mr. Berry was
Matthew's the
off the
6-year-old.
where he could travel about freely, did you restrict him or say he couldn't come into your home?
Not true. Actually, he was there for a couple days, like I said earlier. He asked about Stephen once. That was it. And he used to come over because our house was close to whatever workforce program that the parole thing obligated him to go to in the morning. So he would come to my house and then leave there in the morning. That only lasted for less than a month. And even when he was there, it was never about Matthew. I never stopped him from coming to see them, ever. He just disappeared.
When he asked about Stephen, what did you tell him?
And just like Tony was at my aunt's.
I'm sorry, repeat that. I didn't hear that.
I told him that he was at my aunt's.
All right, you lied to him.
Yes, I did.
All right.
Did he push it? No, he did. He asked me once.
So Stephen's dead. So the father asks, "Where's Stephen?" At my aunt's. He's dead in the freezer in the house.
Know the difference between a truth and a lie?
Objection.
I just told you I lied. But
Okay, I'm sorry. Did you tell the school that Gabrielle and Matthew were not going to attend because they were moving?
I did.
And was that true?
I know the difference between truth and a lie. I definitely lied.
Okay.
I told them that we were moving because Stephen was dead. In September school will be starting. So, yes, I'm pretty sure they would have been looking for, like, why is Stephen missing school? So, yes, I told them that we weren't coming back because I was moving. So trying to blame the school, it had nothing to do with the school. I actually went through all the proper channels to drop them also. So it has nothing to do with the school. The fault is blamed on me. That's it. I know what I did. I'm admitting to everything I did, but you will not try to blame me for them deadbeats not being there.
Did you tell your friends, Ms. Johnson and Mr. Martin, that Stephen and Stoney were upstairs because they didn't like to be around other people?
I did. I can answer that. I did.
Stephen and Stoney were upstairs because they don't like being around people. That's how she kept the two dead children hidden.
I don't think that's not relevant to somebody's credibility. I can show that they've lied in the past.
Yeah, the point is already made that the definition
They're upstairs.
of Gabriella and Matthew is totally different with regard to the death of Stoney and Stephen. So all of this goes to that. Yes, it is inflammatory. Yes, it makes her look bad. But she's already admitted.
The point is that she's trying to attack her mother's credibility as to her opinions regarding Mr. Dorsey and Mr. Blair. They're showing that the mother was untruthful.
That's correct.
The mother has already admitted that she was untruthful in some instances, such as she just did in the schooling situation. I don't know that we need a lot more, but I'll give you a little latitude, but I think it's apparent. The mother's already admitted that she was untruthful in certain situations.
And truthful in the most in terms of what she did.
I have nothing for you.
Okay, Mr. Decker. Thanks for one back.
Miss Blair, after Stoney died, what did you tell Gabby to say to Mr. Dorsey if he asked where Stoney was?
At my aunt.
At my aunt's. So where's Stoney? At my aunt's. Stoney's a 13-year-old.
Ms. Blair, I have just a couple of questions. If you don't understand one of mine, let me know and I'll rephrase it, okay?
Okay.
Okay. In terms of Mr. Berry, after he was released from prison in April of 2013, up until March of 2015, how many times did he ask about Stephen?
I can count on my one hand.
Did you always inform him that he was at his aunt?
Yes. He would say, is he still over there?
Did he ever probe the issue, meaning demand to see Stephen?
No, that's never how he was. Stephen has missed, I want to say, I don't even have to say how many he's missed. Let me tell you how many birthdays he's been there for. 2. He was only there for 2 of Stephen's birthdays. That's it.
What about Maddie's birthday? How many birthdays was he there for Maddie?
One. Just one birthday. And when I used to say that he should talk to Matthew more, because Matthew used to have a really deep list, it was hard to understand what he said. Stephen Barry's words, that little nigga be all right. He's like, I can't understand what he's saying. What's the point of talk? I can't understand him. So no, he never talked to him. Anytime he came to the house, it was always me he was gravitating around. That's it. And when Stephen would pick Matthew up, Matthew would try to swing on his arms to reach back for me. He didn't know him.
In terms of after Mr. Barry was released from prison in April of 2013, you indicated that there were times he actually came to your house?
Yes.
And he actually stayed there for a month?
Basically, not a month. I'm talking about on Vinewood is when we used to go over there.
Right, but I want to talk about after he was released from prison in 2013. He came to your house where Stephen and Stoney's bodies were, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and did he ever ask to see Stephen when he
That
came
was
to
not
your
what.
house?
Can you repeat that? I was talking when you were talking.
The time after he was released from prison, Mr. Barry, and he came to your home, did he ever, once he was inside your home, go upstairs to look for Stephen or anything of that nature?
No.
How many times?
Even when.
How many times would you say he had been to your house after he was released from prison up until May of 2015 or March of 2015? Excuse me.
I want to say 5 to 6, and some of 5 and 6, and some of those were consecutive days back to back.
What I want to ask you, because was Mr. Barry ever in your home in 2015?
No.
Was he in your home December of 2014?
You said December?
Yes.
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Right.
No, nobody. We've never seen Stephen on the Christmas, even when they were alive. And when he said that he spent his money, I sent Stephen $470 while he was incarcerated. He never even wrote Stephen once or responded back to any of Stephen's letters. Stephen sent him 8 letters. Stephen never wrote anything back to him. He never bought a phone card. All he did, he basically, those tattoos that he had, a tattoo on his neck and on his chest. He got those while he was in prison. That's what he used the money for that I sent him. Not to get phone cards, to get prison tattoos and keep his hair braided and get snacks. That's what he spent the money on. And we had no contact with him the whole time he was incarcerated. So when he says that he worked to send, no, he spent every bit of his commissary. He spent every bit of his money on commissary.
You know what I find interesting about this story that she's telling? What I find really interesting is that that these children's fathers were not, all these people that were in these children's life were able to be thrown off by they're upstairs, they don't want to talk to anybody, or they're over at the aunt's house. There are people that I'm friends with on Instagram, and if I don't see a picture of their grandchild or their child, I would be suspicious. Like, what's going on? Where's party baby? Where's he at? I hadn't seen no pictures. If Bozilla came and just started talking about, she never mentioned her daughter ever, I would have questions. These are people that I've never met in real life. In real life. But these are supposed to be your flesh and blood. These are your children. You see 2 of them. You see 1, but you don't see the other ones. How does this go for years and years and years? How? And you live in the same state and in the same city. How? Where was her family? Where were the baby daddy's families? Where were the people? No one asked any questions. Not one question. I know that she's intimidating and threatening and scary, but you should say something. Demand to see your children.
In terms of Mr. Dorsey, after Stoney's death in 2013, did you ever ask about her?
Yes,
Okay, and what did you told him that she was at Iraq?
yes.
And
He never pushed. Yes,
did he ever come to your house after she was murdered?
yes. And he even said that in the news interview. He would sit, our table was by the freezer. He would sit at the table with me and Gabby or just Gabby, and they'll talk for a minute.
Y'all hear that? So the father of Stoney would come to the house, came to the house after the girl had been murdered and in the freezer. Comes inside of the house, talks to Gabby, the 18-year-old, by the freezer. What type of a heartless person can have your child's father and the dead child in the same room together? And how do you have one child there, but you can't see the other one? I don't understand this. So they're sitting by the freezer in the living room having a conversation.
He didn't come a lot, but yes, it wasn't like he coming looking for Stoney. I didn't, like I said, the only one that I felt that I had to really push away was my aunt, because she's the only one that would have known something was wrong. I didn't have to do that with Stephen and Alexander because they wasn't gonna push, and I know that.
Highly manipulative. No remorse. Psychopathic.
All right, thank you, Ms. Blair. We're going to take a brief recess.
All right. So this is the disturbing case of Michelle Blair and the saga of her murdering her two minor children, putting them in the freezer, and leaving them in that deep freezer in the living room for 2 years. And it only took an eviction. That's how she got caught, the eviction. I don't know how long she could have kept up this lie. She kept it up for 2 years. It's extremely disturbing. It it has not sat right with me at all. It's been very troubling. And it's sad when you have positive experiences with your parents and your mother, and you see your mother as a person when you were a little child that you ran to help you and to protect you and to give you unconditional love, even though you weren't aware that you were getting unconditional love. But you know that's the person that's mommy. I fall down and I hurt myself, I run to mommy. And mommy could do this to her children. It's just it's words can't even describe how it just can't describe how terrible this is. I don't have any children, and this disturbs me deeply. So But she's been in jail. She, of course, as you can see, that she has personality issues. That she has an anger problem. So she's been in jail attacking guards. She's one of the people that loves to throw feces and urine on people. She got an extra 5 years tacked onto um her 2 life sentences. She was pled guilty to, what was it? It was aggravated murder of no, it was first degree murder, premeditated murder with Stoney, and then aggravated murder with Stephen. But she refers to her own children as demons. These children were nothing to her but pawns on a chessboard and some object that she could whip on because she lacked the intellectual intelligence, I love it. The intellectual intelligence and the emotional intelligence to deal with herself. But it's a failure on all levels. It is a failure of her mother. It is a failure on the fathers of these people. It's a failure on the school system. It is a failure all the way around to allow this to happen to 2 children and it be hidden for 2 years. 2. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and conclude my Tuesday of terror, real life terror, with I give you Michelle Blair. So we're going to do another episode next Tuesday. I'm going to find another monster to highlight, and we'll do it again next Tuesday of terror. I want to thank everybody that came out this evening. Please make sure that you hit the like and subscribe and the notification button. And also, please subscribe to the other backup channels, Auntie Miracle B2 and Auntie Miracle B3. All right. Well, you guys have a wonderful evening. And one more thing. I'm just going to say, drums, please.
Drums, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have had a great time tonight. We have truly enjoyed ourselves, and we would like to thank you for being a part of the show and coming to visit this platform. Live on YouTube, Auntie Miracle B. Make sure you come back, because it's all the way live each and every time. Auntie Miracle B.